Hi everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of a really popular knife, and one that's kind of become a standard in the pocket knife world, and that's your Spyderco Paramilitary 2, or PM2 for short. So first off, I talked a little bit about this already in my What is the Best EDC Knife video. Everything I say there is true. This is just a more full-on, in-depth kind of review. Also, this is not exactly a PM2. This is a sprint run, which means it's a limited production version with a different scale color, brown, and a different steel, S35VN. I love S35 a lot. That's why I picked this up, and I got a good price used. But the standard version, which is black scales and S30V, is going to be just fine for most people. And your blurple, that's blue and purple mixed together, S110V version is just going to be absolutely amazing. But regardless, this knife is a gem no matter which version you end up with. So, yeah, let's just jump into it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll start with the good. The good, the compression lock. So compression lock is kind of like a liner lock, except it works in reverse. Instead of the liner being in the middle here, there's nothing here, the liner is in the back. And so when you open the knife, this pops over and fills a little hole, using Spyderco's literature here, between the tang of the blade and your stop pin. And that means that in order for this knife to close, you're going to need to compress a chunk of metal, and metal does not tend to like to compress. So that means it's very strong, and it's a very solid lockup. There's no hint of play in any direction at any level. This feels really solid, and even more solid, I would say, than your frame locks, and that's saying something. Another benefit is you can do the snap close kind of thing, and as you're closing the knife, your finger never needs to enter the blade path. Here's your sleesh buoy, and you can see that when I open this, when I close this knife, my thumb needs to come in the path of the blade briefly. And that's not a problem. I'm not that coordinated, and I've never cut myself on a frame lock. But nonetheless, it's kind of a nice thing. And it's part of the reason that I really like the compression lock, and I'm probably gonna pick up something else with it. In fact, I got an Ouroboros, which is one of Spyderco's new models, on pre-order because, well, I'm a sucker for alchemical symbolism. So that's nice. Blade thickness. This is a thick blade. Compared to something like your Delica here, very thick, very beefy. And that's the nice thing, is I don't have any fears that I'm going to injure this blade. Even the tip is pretty damn beefy. And so it's going to be plenty durable for any needs. But it's also well cut. The geometry is nice here because it's got a full flat grind, which means it could actually, I'm not going to want to use this to cut sweet potatoes all day long. But at the same time, it could in a pinch. So that's kind of a nice thing. Pardon me. Ergonomics. Good. No complaints. Fits nicely in the hand, choil, thumb ramp. The only thing is, it's not as comfortable as your Manix, because there's a bit of a hollow right here. For my hands, at least. But overall, ergonomically, it's another Spyderco gem. Spyderco is just, I mean, Sal Glesser, the designer of this, is just kind of an absolute ergonomic marvel, if you will. So, no complaints there. It's got a good clip. It's their 4-position clip, so you can have it here, or here. I do kind of wish it was the wire clip, and the reason for that is that this hangs out of the pocket a fair amount. Like, the amount of knife hanging out your pocket is this much, which is pretty impressive, and not all that subtle. The fit and finish is pretty damn good. It's not sleesh buoy level, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be. I wish they'd had a sharpening choil here, but that's a little tiny affair. But overall, you know, this is an American-made Spyderco, and generally those are, you know, not quite as good as your Taiwan-made Spydercos, but there's nothing to scoff at here. This is a well-put-together knife. I got no complaints. Solid. And that's the thing about this knife, is that it is solid. It is absolutely rock solid. It's got full liners in there, which is another nice thing. So, for instance, I don't know if you can see this, but there's metal liner all underneath these G10 scales. The scales are mostly cosmetic. Compare that to, here's your Benchmade 940. And I don't know that you can see this, but inside your 940 here, there is a little metal liner, and it only goes about here, and it's only in the center of the knife, which means that most of this is just carbon fiber. I'm not saying it's not beefy, but there's something to be said for having big-ass chunks of steel hidden under the G10 here. This knife is just subjectively incredibly solid feeling. Maybe the most solid feeling folder I own, even compared to some of my frame locks. I mean, they feel solid, but hot damn, this is impressive. And that's really the best thing about your Spyderco PM2, is that this is a knife that, you know, I feel like could take damn near anything. And that's kind of nice, especially if you're in some situations. So there's your good. Your bad. There are a couple of issues with the PM2, none of which, this is a gem. I won't even say that. Won't say anything different. But first off is your handle to blade ratio. The handle is holding a whole lot of air. I mean, the blade in this handle is going about this deep. And so this whole lanyard hole area, obviously, there's nothing going on there. They could have done with a whole lot less handle on this. And in fact, if you compare it to, so this is a 3.5-inch blade, compare it to your 940, this is a much larger knife than it needs to be. Or compared to your TI lock here, which has about the same amount of useful blade in a handle that is just a tiny, 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 tiny proportion of your PM2. This is not a space-efficient knife, and we'll get there. But that's one kind of complaint. Second, the compression lock can be a little on the sticky side. It's not too bad, and I'm sure I could fix it by putting a little Sharpie on there. But it's still something to keep in mind, and I'm told that that breaks in. This didn't have a whole lot of use before I got it. I gotta be honest, the name is leaving me cold. The Paramilitary 2? Really? I mean, I know that that feeds into a lot of things that people love, but, I mean, this is not a militaristic knife, or it doesn't need to be. So I kind of wish they'd gone with a different name. But that's just me, that's just my style. And then finally, this isn't so much the dig on this knife, but on Spyderco knives in general. The warranty is void if you disassemble it. That said, this was shipped to me with some stripped screws, because a very bad little seller didn't report that. But Spyderco is sending me a new set of screws after just a one-sentence lecture. Well, you know you shouldn't disassemble them. Yeah, I know, but that idiot didn't. So anyways, they say you shouldn't disassemble it for warranty purposes, and that always rubs me the wrong way. I've always liked the Chris Reeve approach, where it's like, yeah, take the knife apart, and if you can't put it back together, send the parts to us in a baggie, and we'll do it. That seems like a much more reasonable approach. But for the value, okay, whatever Spyderco's got to do. All right, finally the ugly, and that's the size. Just to give you an understanding, this is Kanchenjunga. This is the third tallest mountain in the world, very, very large in Nepal. This is your Spyderco PM2, only slightly smaller. Okay, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but nonetheless, this is a huge, huge, huge freaking knife. Compared to your Sleesh Bowie, it's freaking huge. Compared to your Spyderco Delica, it's freaking huge. Compared to your Benchmade 940, it's freaking huge. And compared to your Chris Reeve tie lock, which is one of the most compact big knives out there, it's really freaking huge. So the PM2 is a large knife. This is not a knife that you're going to throw in your pants and forget about it after a long day. I mean, this is big even for me, and I'm a 6-foot-tall guy, and I'm not wearing hipster skinny jeans. But nonetheless, when this is in my pocket, well, let's put it this way, I'm not fitting my iPhone Plus in there. So that's kind of that's what you pay. I mean, this is a super durable knife, and that's kind of what it comes down to, is that this is a knife that is really, really durable. It's really, really strong. It's a good cutter. I mean, it's a great, great tool, but it's a tool that's meant for pretty serious conditions. This is going to be reliable despite hell. I have no doubt that, now, don't get me wrong, I plan to live a long and happy life, but I'm pretty sure this knife is still going to survive me, because holy crap. The steel is good, full liners, the G10 is fine. I mean, the clip is the most flimsy thing on there, and that's, $2 and 10 minutes to replace. So this is one hell of a knife for hard use situations, and when you're just not sure what's coming. That said, this isn't probably going to get a lot of pocket time for me, because it's just too much knife for me. I'm kind of boring, office drone type. And if I go to work and I whip this out in the lunchroom, it's complete and total overkill in every single way. And some people are probably going to be all scared because, I don't need this in the lunchroom. So this is really, for me, the knife, okay. So my girlfriend wakes me up. She says, hey, Nick, it's the apocalypse. There's 7 suns in the sky. There are locusts around, and they kind of look like Gilbert Gottfried. And, my tray of Buddha just showed up, and, it's all over. My first thought's going to be, okay, God damn it, let me grab the PM2. Because at that point, I know that this knife is going to survive, even if I don't. So that's kind of where this knife is for me, and I think where it should be for you. This is an incredible knife for hard use, for durable situations, for if you suspect shit might get real, or if you're going to need to do a lot of hardcore cutting. on a regular basis, this is a great knife for you. But if you're just looking for something to carry every day, you use it once or twice a day, or you're looking for man jewelry, which this is not, you might think about something like your 940, your Delica, or even your tie lock, or some other knife that's a little bit less hardcore than this. And so, yeah. Actually, one other thing I will say, though, is that when I picked this up, I was figuring I was going to pick it up, sharpen it, flip it, and move on with my life. But actually, I think this guy's probably going to stick around in my collection. Because, technically speaking, it is a really, really nice knife. It's well made, it's solid, and it is durable. And there are, I've got the Graham Razel, which is also a very durable knife, but this would be a very good kind of beater sort of situation. Or if I'm going out, hiking or something like that, I might carry this guy. But generally speaking, this is still going to be a little too much for me on a daily basis. So that's your Spyderco PM2. It's a huge freaking knife, but it's solid, incredibly well done in terms of technique and fit and finish. And, it's a gem. May not be the gem for you, but it sure as hell is a gem. Hope this is helpful, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day.